Hello, everyone. I am going to introduce our speaker for this evening. Thank you very much, Maria Rekrut, for having joined us. And your presentation will be about everything that you've learned in the last 40 years of being in business and how you continue to hone your skills. You're open to progress and you update your education as needed because we never stop learning. I understand you are a business development consultant, a trainer, and a real estate investor since 1982. You're also a keynote speaker and author and blogger for short-term rentals since 2000. You're also a #1 best-selling author and a triple award-winning author of your book, Double Your Income Using Social Media. You have grown your wealth by using social media as a tool. You believe everyone needs to have a strong social media presence to find new business clients and to grow a following of people wanting to do business with you. You are a winner and a participant at Magnetic Entrepreneur Incorporated, a winner and participant at the Guinness Book of World Records, and a #1 international best-selling author of the book, Magnetic Entrepreneur World Renowned. You are chief editor-in-chief, host, and producer of the Real Estate Media News, radio, TV network channel, author, radio talk show host on your weekly radio show, Maria Rekrut, on all things real estate on various TV and radio networks. Welcome, Maria. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate Jocelyn. And thank you very much, ladies. It's nice to see you. And what a nice surprise that I've known most of you and I've networked with you throughout the years. Who would have thought we would have, gotten together tonight? So I started my business in 1982 in New York City. And I ran a business there for 4 years. And we did medical exams for insurance companies. I had just finished graduating from the Conservatory of Music in Italy and in Spain, and had returned to New York City and gotten married with my husband, who was a medical doctor. And I had gotten my degree, my master's degree and my doctorate in music performance. I'm a performer, a vocal performer, I'm a soprano, and couldn't find a job. I didn't realize it wasn't what I knew, it was who I knew. So that was the #1 lesson that I've learned in life. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So I ran the business there for 4 years. Then I returned back to Canada. So the business was in New York City, Manhattan, Long Island, and Queens. I ran the office myself, and I hired and had doctors, physicians working for the company. So then I moved back to Niagara on the Lake because my parents were here and I started from scratch. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything, not a car, an apartment, nothing. And I started from scratch. And I remember I was about 35, 36 years old when I returned to Canada. And I said to my father at that time, I said, Poppy, I said, I don't know if I have the strength to start all over again, because it was basically starting all over again, having left my husband in New York City because of our differences. And he says, oh, Maria, this is just a little bump in the road of your life, So I must say my parents were very supportive, not financially, because I never asked them for finances. I always took care of myself with finances as a single woman, but they were there for me because wasn't driving then. I didn't have a car, so they drove me around to find different jobs. It was so interesting because I had run the company in New York City, started from scratch here, right? Nobody knew me. So I remember I was working as a baker. I was working in a greenhouse, which I loved, completely loved doing. Then I worked as a receptionist at Shaw Festival. Then I started to work with, my background was music recreation. So I started running programs in senior citizens home for seniors. And then after that, I started to teach for Niagara College, Brock University, University of Manitoba. So I started to move into my own business. And I think that was a difficult thing to start from the bottom up, but I had the enthusiasm and I wanted to succeed. And my dream was to have my own car, to purchase a home, and to also start my consulting practice. And within 2.5 years, I was able to do that. I reached all those goals. And in the meantime, in the meantime, I was working 7 part-time jobs. So I would go from job to job to job to job, and some of them were with the college, some of them were with the music school, different courses. I was teaching different courses, developing different courses for business, for entrepreneurs, because that was at the beginning when entrepreneurship was trying to become a really sexy word to use and a sexy thing to do, right? We know it as starting your own business, but there was this big word, entrepreneurship. So because I was one of the only women contractors and consultants in the Niagara area, there was no one else going around and doing what I was doing, teaching and meeting with managers in their offices as a woman entrepreneur. So I was the first that started, and it was 1986 when I came back to Niagara-on-the-Lake. Was 1986. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's my base. But I went to Europe, Italy, and Spain in 1971. And then I returned back from Europe in 1982, having spent all those years both in Italy and then in Spain, getting my degrees in music and in a vocal performance. So then I started teaching music here again, which was fun. I enjoyed that. And then I started directing choirs. I did all kinds of things. I started the Niagara Oratorio Society when I first moved here. So it's funny when I look back, as I forget a lot of the things that I have done in the past, but it's interesting how you build on top of, you have building blocks as you go along. And I always find that myself with my businesses, they kind of mesh together and kind of move along. So I started to teach courses on the soft skills like time management, dealing with difficult people. I developed those courses and would teach. And I was teaching for an American company, traveled all over Canada and US, and it was called Skill Path. I can remember that. I don't know if you remember Skill Path. Yeah. But I was one of the teachers, and I was teaching, and I was traveling from city to city and would teach for 8 hours. And then I would be selling their books and systems. Then I would stay overnight at the hotel, then jump in the evening and go to the plane and move to the next city and hire a car. And it was just like going like crazy. So I was doing very, very well. I had purchased my first home in 1988. I remember that. And 2.5 years later, I was able to purchase it. And I borrowed the first mortgage at 11% interest, the second mortgage at 13% interest. Wow. The third, I got a third mortgage, and then I put in my own money, $5,000. And I was able to handle that as a single woman myself. And how I was able to do it was to budget. And also I had so many jobs that the money was coming in. I always said, as long as more money is coming in than going out, I'm in a good place, right? Yes. So as I was moving along, I had the Rekrut and Associates consulting practice, and I had consultants working with me. We'd go out to different businesses and consult with them of how to become better business, become more successful with either sales or marketing or whatever else. So I moved forward to 2000. I had paid off my third mortgage and my second mortgage, and I had one mortgage left. Now, in all this time, my dream was to start a bed and breakfast. And I knew that when I purchased my little cottage rental, it wasn't affording. I couldn't do a bed and breakfast in there. So I was looking forward and leaped forward to buying a house that was 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. And of course, the price was a lot more than what I had paid in 1988. But I was determined. So here I am, I'm trying to think, where am I going to get this money from? What am I going to do? And I just happened to speak to someone, and they said, why don't you find out how much your house is worth now? I said, what do you mean? Well, they said, your house gains in value. Well, I didn't know that, right? I just bought a house to live in and working very hard to pay off the debts and also the mortgages. So I did get in touch with my credit union. Lo and behold, my house had gained a lot of equity. So I said, okay, I'm taking the next step. I'm going to buy the bigger property. And it's interesting because I had to negotiate 6 months before I was able to purchase the property, because the people who wanted to sell the property didn't want to lower their prices. And I said, okay, so if you're not going to lower the price, I'll give you the amount of money you want, but this is what I want in return. I want the name of the business, because it was a bed and breakfast. I want your phone number. I want the furniture. And they didn't have a website at that time. But so I got all, everything in the house was included, but it took me 6 months. So I learned to have patience when you want something. Okay. So that was the first thing. So I did purchase that house in June of 2000, and I started the business of bed and breakfast. And of course, the people who had run the bed and breakfast said, do you have business? Oh yeah, we've got lots of business. Well, they had zero business. They hadn't been running that business for maybe 5 years, but of course they wouldn't tell you that, right?
No.
So here I am. I said, okay, I've got a mortgage payment coming out in a month's time. What am I going to do? So I got in touch with the association. It was called Niagara Lake Bed and Breakfast Association. And I joined, and then I got some good advice from people there on how to move forward. So then I had a website built, and I started the business. And of course, it was very slow at the very beginning, but I was running two households. I was running my cottage rental in Niagara Lake, and I was running my bed and breakfast in Niagara Lake. So I was making like 8 beds a day and cleaning 8 bathrooms a day. And I was determined to make it happen. I'd have enough money to pay my mortgage. And lo and behold, July came around, no problem. I had the money, right? And so people were starting to come, but they really didn't know me. If it wasn't for people sending me people, I probably would have, wouldn't have been able to make as much money as I did. So after, like, it was June, July, August, September, October. So 5 months later, I could see that the market was waning, right? So nobody was coming for bed and breakfast any longer. It was going towards the winter time. So in the meantime, I found a mentor who was in real estate, and he needed help with one of his deals, right? So I said, okay, I'll help you with your deal. But I said to him, what you're going to do for me is you're going to help me become a millionaire. You're going to teach me how to become a millionaire with real estate. And you know what? He was true to his word. He helped me out. And so he said it to me at one point, Maria, you should get in the student rental business. I said, I don't know anything about it. He says, oh, I'll tell you how to do it. So I went out and bought a couple more houses with the same money that I had gotten from my cottage rental, which was a big chunk of money. So then I went ahead and bought a couple more properties, and then I just continued going ahead with my real estate, right? So fast forward 22 years later. So now I can sit back, and since 2008, I have been financially independent, and it's all based on my real estate. It's my real estate that's giving me my bread and butter every single day. So yes, I did retire in 2008, but that doesn't mean I stopped doing my business. You never stop doing your business. You cannot let go of it. You can't let go of any business. You've got to be in there all the time. And I think that's another thing I learned from all the people that I met, and my mentor, who was a young man. He was 10 years younger than me. He was working hard every single day on his business. He was there moving his truck around, picking up garbage, picking up furniture. He never let up a moment. Even though he had other people working with him, he was on site every single day, minding his business. And I remember that he told me, as part of my training, he said, Maria, you go over there and you talk to that tenant and tell me what he wants. So, so I remember getting out of his truck. He had a big high truck. I went and stepped down, and I went to speak to that guy. And so I said, so what is it that you want? And da-da-da-da-da. And this guy was calling him all kinds of names and all of that, right? So anyways, I just left him there, and I went and talked to my mentor. And I said, well, this is what this guy says. He said, what did he say? I said, this is what he said, and I said, well, maybe you could handle this a little bit differently, right? Because at that time, I had already been teaching how to deal with difficult people, right? I mean, that was the courses I had developed and I was teaching. And so I was able to help him. He was able to help me. And fast forward 22 years, here I am, relaxing, semi-retired, going into full retirement, but that doesn't mean I stop my business. My business is always going to be there because that's what makes me who I am, right? So the lessons that I learned, I would say, is I've had to stay abreast of technology. Technology I've had to learn. There was no faxes. My first website was built in 1993. Think about that. Nobody even knew about websites at that time. And it was built by someone in St. Catharines. So website was built in 1993, not that I knew what to do with it. The internet wasn't even around. I had to learn how to handle a computer. I had no idea what a computer was. I didn't even know what a mouse was. So I had to go, so I had to go to these high school evening classes because I was working during the day, teaching and whatever else. And so I was learning how to type on a computer, learn what it meant to be to handle a computer because I had no idea. And my first computer was an Apple computer. I didn't even know how to turn it on. So I got in touch with someone who was better than I, and I had her come over to my house, and she was teaching me about how to turn it on and what to do with the Apple computer.
Yep.
And then with the internet, I had somebody else come and help me again, another mentor. So all along, as I'm going along, there's been mentors for everything, right? I learned it when I was doing my real estate. I learned the student rentals from a mentor, talking to them, finding out, getting the paperwork from people who were so much better than I was, and they were much more experienced. I was just kind of starting out, right? Then rent to own properties. I had a mentor to teach me how to do that. Then a bed and breakfast. How do you do that? How do you do cottage rentals? How do you handle taking on a mortgage? I gave a mortgage. I gave a first mortgage to someone.
Wow.
How do you handle contractors? Like, how do you do any of this, right? I didn't know anything about all this stuff, but I had to learn. And I must say, in those days, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have YouTube like now. I just go, if I want to know something now, I go on YouTube and I learn it. Well, I didn't know anything. There was no YouTube, or even if there was, who even knew about it? How did you find it? So, now I think it's so much easier to learn things than before. And now I've gone into crypto. So I had to learn about what crypto is, what's Bitcoin, what's Ethereum, what's Cardano, what does this mean, right? What are we talking about crypto? So I have a mentor for that, and I take courses for that. And I'm on YouTube learning about all of that. So in a year and 3 months, I become very educated about what this is all about and how to use it. So I have always learned along the way, and I will never stop learning. I think if I stopped learning, I'll die, But my mother and my father were always reading. I was always reading since I was a little child. I loved reading. I loved literature, and I loved to learn. I have an insatiable appetite to learn. So if I don't know something, I'll look it up until I know it, and then I can let go of it and go to the next one. So for my gardening now, right? I watch YouTube videos about how to transplant, how to propagate, like all of that on YouTube. So it's not like I've stopped, So real estate keeps going. That is my bread and butter. Crypto is coming on board now. That will probably become my bread and butter in the future. And then the rest of the time is I'm learning new skills and enjoying my life finally. So I can say that it's been 40 years as a business person. I can finally take a breath, relax, and enjoy it. But my hand is always on the pulse, because I have to keep up with it. I have to make sure my properties are producing, because that's where the money's coming from, right? And make the best use of it. And I'm starting to look for more properties. So it never stops, it just kind of goes around in circles. So I would say, get a mentor, get a coach, always be learning, be curious, go on YouTube to learn, ask questions. And if you make mistakes, it's okay to make a mistake, unless we die, what can happen with a mistake? Try not to make financial mistakes. That's the one thing. I'm very, very conservative about my money. And yes, a woman can do it by herself. I'm living proof. And I always say to everyone who there's a couple, what's stopping the two of you from becoming successful? There's two of you. If I can do it as one person, you can't tell me two people can't do it. You've got double the energy, double the power, double the knowledge, you know? So yes, it can be done. A woman can become successful and become financially independent. And for me, it's being real estate.
Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you so much. Very
Oh,
inspiring.
fascinating.
Thank
Very
you.
Eh,
much so. Wow.
Can I
Very
ask, Maria?
impressive too.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Maria, you started out in music.
Yes. Yes.
What led you to music?
Oh, I was always very talented since I was a little girl. I was
Oh, okay.
performing all the time since I was a little girl. And my dream at 10 years old was to go to Europe and study at the Conservatory of Music, which I did. And
Okay.
I started saving money at 10 years old to go to Europe. And I left at
Wow.
21, and I had a bank account with money to pay for the plane and to live there, you know. So it was 10
Oh,
years
wow.
old when I made a decision that I was going to go to Europe and which conservative music I was going to enter, and I got it. And you have to, they don't just take you, you have to,
Yeah.
they have to hear you singing before. So when I was in Winnipeg, I was studying music and studying vocal almost every night. I paid for it myself. I worked during the day, and then in
Wow.
the evenings I go to my professor. He was Professor Labinsky, who was a Russian tenor, and I would travel maybe an hour and a half to his house. Then I would travel back home around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it was very dark and very cold because Winnipeg's very dark and cold. And I remember getting off the bus and walking right down the center of the street.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't have any surprises by someone coming up to me or grabbing me.
Oh, okay.
So I remember that I was
Yeah.
walking in the middle of the street to get home, and that was a long walk and was very cold. But again, I was very determined that I was going to go to Europe and study. So it's
Wow.
kind of always been there since I was a little girl. So 40 years in business, but I would say 60 years in the making of who I am right now, right?
Oh, yeah, I started back when you were 10 and started saving. That's wonderful.
Already, yeah.
You had really good parents that were teaching you these things, so awesome.
Yeah, I was very
Awesome.
fortunate, very, very fortunate. Yeah.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Mhm. Well, I was curious because, I like music, and usually someone who's on that path stays on it. But then, after running the business through your husband and then coming back to St. Catharines and Niagara, it was like, what now am I going to do? And it's really amazing that the cottage rental and bed and breakfast presented.
Yeah, well, you know what it is though, Charmaine. I mean, I got back into music when I moved here, but I still had other jobs. So
Oh, okay.
I started teaching, which I did at Ryson's School of Music, which was in St. Catharines. I was teaching there with Ann Damey for about 10 years. And then I was directing choirs, and I was teaching music at Niagara College too. So it's not as if I had dropped it.
Right.
But for me, I need to make more money. So slowly from the music, I started to teach presentation skills, and I was teaching that at the University of Manitoba every summer to the professors. So they learned how to speak properly and be able to speak loudly in the classroom and to make whatever they're presenting more exciting rather than just dull, right? So it was kind of a slow progress, right? It was the slow progress of teaching people how to present themselves, that I was teaching that to other people. And then at one point, and then I was on the road with Skill Path. I was teaching there also presentation skills, time management, dealing with difficult people, and a number of other courses. And then at one point I said, that's too much pressure, too much stress traveling.
Yes.
I wanted to go into what I thought would be the way to make the most amount of money and still stay at home, which was real estate, bed and breakfast, and cottage rental, and then move into the student rentals and everything else. And I was still performing. I mean, even in 2000, even when I was teaching, I'm sorry, when I was going into real estate, I was still performing. But
That's
at one
awesome.
point, I had to make the decision that that wasn't what I was going to do anymore. So I stopped teaching. I stopped directing choirs. I just stepped away from it and went directly into real estate and my business. And I've never regretted that, never, because that gave me my freedom, financial freedom. And I knew real estate was the way to give myself financial freedom.
Well, thank you, Maria. Wendy has a question.
Oh, okay. Hi, Wendy. Nice
Hey,
to
how are
meet
you?
you. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm curious about the bed and breakfast.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of challenges with the bed and breakfast, but I'm just wondering if you
Yes.
could talk a little bit about that.
What would you like to know? It's a different business model completely. It's a different business model, right? Doing a bed and breakfast. So what questions would you have about it? Because it's so vast.
I'm just wondering
Well, you.
about, I don't know what I'm trying to get at. Like, is it a viable business? I guess that's my question.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a very viable business. You do make good money. But you have to have the right location. And I don't know where you live or what you're thinking, but as far as having a bed and breakfast, I had to be licensed. Okay, I've always been licensed. So for 20 years, I was licensed as a bed and breakfast and as a cottage rental. So and that's what's happening now in a lot of the cities. Is before, like in Niagara Falls, you didn't have to be licensed. Fort Erie, you didn't have to be licensed. Port Colborne, you didn't. Oh, even Ridgeway, you didn't. But now the towns are coming down hard on people to get licensed, and you can't always maybe get licensed because you have to have 3 or 4 inspectors come through your home to make sure everything is in order. So it's not as easy as it used to be. There's much more competition than there used to be. So you have to keep abreast of that to understand the business. So when I started the bed and breakfast, I had my mentors, but I was also reading books about it. And there's books that you can get from the library. You can go online and you can learn too, right? And just read about it and find out if that's the business you want to be in, because people will always be in your house. Because a bed and breakfast, you have to give some sort of a breakfast style. I started with full breakfast, then I said that's not my style, didn't fit in with my personality, so I just did continental, and they could just help themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't have to see them at all, because at the beginning for 3 years I was seeing them, I had to serve breakfast, and I thought, no, that's not for me. You know, I didn't want to see the people necessarily all the time. They have a beautiful place they can come to. I could say hi, goodbye, but and they also wanted to be on their own. They didn't want somebody hanging around them, right? So there's different styles of bed and breakfast too. And mine was really hands off. That's just my style as a business person, even with my rentals.
Yes.
Like I'm in there doing what I have to, but I really don't necessarily have to meet the people all the time. You know what I'm saying? But that's my style. And I always say, are you buying the right property for your style? Is that property for you? I mean, you know, the kind of people you're going to rent to, the kind of rental you're going to do. You know, you have to think about that. Is that house for you?
Yes. Yeah. And as far as the beach rentals, is that something like, do you do all the maintenance and the, like when people leave on Saturday or Sunday, do you do the cleanup after?
Well, I used to.
Or do you hire
I
somebody?
did. Well, okay, I tried hiring and they didn't do a very good job, and I was paying them for it, right? So myself, I prefer to do it. But if I don't, I hire someone to do it. But that's another thing, is to find the right people. I think the hardest thing for a real estate investor with any kind of business is finding the good people, the service people that will help you. And I was just talking to a real estate investor out in Calgary, and he says, Maria, the hardest thing is finding people to work for you. I said, tell me about it.
Mhm.
This is what you're going to hear, even among bed and breakfast. Do you have a good cleaning person? Can I borrow that cleaning person? So, you know, no matter what people say, oh, I'm out of work, or I can do this, to get the right person is tough. It
Yes.
really is, you know? So I never hire anyone, just they're contractors. So I
Mhm.
learned in the United States, in New York City, that everyone that worked for me, all the doctors, were contractors. They weren't employees. So I've become very accustomed to working with contractors. I don't want any employees. I don't need any employees. My accountant's a contractor. My cleaning person, if I have one, is, is a contractor. The person who mows the lawn is a contractor. They're all contractors. I pay them when the job is done. And I say, hasta la vista, And I use the same ones over and over and over again because they've proven themselves. So
Yeah.
that's another thing that, you've got to, it's tough finding good help.
It is. And
Yes.
it's even harder, I think, now than it was
Yes, it
before
is.
COVID.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Our generation did things right. When I started, with my first house in 1988, I could find a handy person, no problem. And they were usually, the older generation that may have worked and they just wanted to make some extra money. So they would come and they would do a good job. But now they want to get paid and they don't do a good job. So the whole
Yeah.
thing changed.
Yes.
Have I answered your question, Wendy, about the bed and breakfast, or do you have something else to ask?
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
You can reach out to me anytime, Wendy. If you have
Okay.
questions, please do.
Yeah.
The question that came up, you said there's different styles. So is Airbnb different from a bed and breakfast?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Airbnb is just a listing site.
Oh, okay.
That's what people are getting wrong.
Oh,
It's all short-term rentals, like bed and breakfast or cottage rental or vacation rentals or lakeside rental. That is a short-term rental business. It's called short-term rental.
Okay.
STR, short-term rentals. But Airbnb is just a listing site like booking.com, like Expedia. Those are listing sites and people are getting mixed up. They say, are you doing Airbnb? Well, no, I'm doing short-term rentals. Airbnb is just a listing site. And when I started 22 years ago, there were no sites like that.
no.
Nobody even knew about it. And I actually had my 2 websites built where nobody else was having websites built. The first one, 1993, the second one in 2000. And nobody else was doing it. People didn't even know how to find you. They would Google you, right? Not many
Okay.
people Google you anymore.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah, then
for
now they
that.
go on listing sites, right? They go on
Yes.
listing sites.
Yes.
And I remember 22 years ago, I had approached one of these companies like Airbnb. And I said, can I put my listing on your site? And you know what they said to me? Oh, no, that's not the kind of rentals we do. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, you're really missing an opportunity. So fast forward 12 years after, they come to me and say, booking.com says, can I have you on my listing site? But I had that idea 22 years before.
Yeah.
So what I find oftentimes is I'm way ahead of other people with ideas, right?
Yeah.
But people don't understand where I'm coming from because they don't even think along those lines. So, I've kind of always been a little bit ahead of my time with seeing what's going on in business, what's going on with politics, what's going on with the economy, what's the next best big thing that's coming around.
Yeah.
So I try and keep abreast and then I move along my business into that new sector. And that for me is the crypto now, right? Crypto as real estate. Real estate's still there, but now let's look at crypto now as a form of real estate.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Any more?
There's a lot of information. And when I say I don't remember, because I've got so much going on in my head. Now I understand older people, right? I mean, they've had all this stuff jammed into their head all these years. How can you remember everything,
And the same filing cabinet needs
Yeah,
rearranging.
exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, it's all been fun. It's all fun. It's all fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
Wow. I'm floored.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Amazing.
I find it very interesting that the more things change, the more they stay the same as well. You
Yes.
do have to look forward, no question about it. But as a general rule, you've got to bring what you've got with you
Yes.
in order to be successful with something new.
In business, yes. I always say to people, don't drop what you're good at, just bring it forward with you and just kind of mold it into something else, right? I find a lot of people now just jump from one sexy thing to another sexy thing, and you've wasted all that time. Why don't you pull the string along, that it all comes together, all the skills you've learned will come. You're right, Anne. That's exactly the key to success. Is just bring it along with you and maybe come up with a new thing that you want to do, but you have all that base behind you, right? That you become successful. And the one thing is, I started buying real estate at 49. My first one, it was in 1988, so I was 38 years old then. But when I started really wholeheartedly I was 49 years old. And most people would think, oh, you're too old. Well, I was just starting out, right? I find most of the people who become successful and wealthy start from the latter age of 40s until 65 and 70, because it takes you that long to get to it, right? You have all that energy and education up until 49. And at 49, everything kind of comes together. You hold it, and then you move forward with whatever project you want to go with. Yeah, that's what I realize now.
Yeah, that's why my audience is 47 plus.
Yeah,
They've got all this experience that they've done taking care of everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're waking up to the, now what do I want to do, right? Because they're empty nesters, they're early retirees, and they're thinking,
yeah,
I've done all this, what about me?
Yeah.
So they need to get reacquainted with themselves so that they can get permission to take their next step.
And also,
I like what you're saying, Charmaine, because I think about like an interesting thing I thought of years ago. Like, I always thought I wouldn't be living here in the cold. Now, but I never quite got my act together.
Okay.
You know? And I think a lot of what Maria's had to say and what you've just said really applies. If you're going to do it, make your mind up and plan to do it. Don't plan to not do it.
Yeah. And go slowly and go slow.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to jump in tomorrow.
No, go slow and find someone. Like what I always do is always find someone who's doing what I want to do, right? And then I ask them to teach me. So that person teaches me one skill, and then I go to the next person, they teach me another skill. So I'm never afraid to ask for help. I'm never afraid to say, I don't know. Would you teach me? And most people love to teach you something that they're really good at.
Yeah.
You know, they're flattered.
Thing.
They're flattered, right?
Ask for help and mentors. That's what really stood out here. And that's true. But it's learning to ask for help when you haven't for so many years. But thank you for that. That's all.
And you know, Charmaine, the other thing too is, you know, if you don't feel comfortable speaking to a real person, go on YouTube. I mean, there's so many mentors over there, but just don't buy the courses, okay? I'm not telling you to buy any courses.
Exactly.
You go there, and if they're real educators, you're going to learn from them, right?
Yes, exactly.
They're not going to try and sell you anything. And quite frankly, that's how I learned about crypto. I knew nothing last June, like a year ago. I knew nothing. I had no idea what anything was. But I watched every night and every morning. I'm still doing that now. Every morning, every night, I'm in bed watching YouTube videos about crypto. And I found, okay, first of all, what's this one? What's Bitcoin all about? What's Ethereum all about? And I watched program after program, and I wrote down copious notes.
Yeah.
And then when I was ready in August, I found someone, again, another mentor, who was very good at what he was doing, and he showed me how to do it, almost like holding my hand. And after that, I said, okay, I need to find somebody else who can teach me something else. So I went to another mentor, you know, but in the meantime, always reading and watching YouTube videos. I mean, that you don't have to pay anything for that, Charmaine. It's for free.
I know, I do it a lot.
Yeah.
I do it a lot to keep up on coaching.
We're so fortunate now, which we never had years ago, as you know. I mean, when I was learning about real estate, I was traveling to Toronto maybe 3 or 4 times a month.
Wow.
And around here too, they had different meetings in Niagara Falls, in Welland. You know, it was cold at night, snow. I went because I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Now we can stay in the comfort of our home, do a Zoom meeting. Look at this. I mean, how many people I've met,
I
you
know.
know, and talk on the phone. Like, I mean, you can have an education for nothing. You don't
Yeah.
have to pay for it. Just the only thing you pay is time. And I
That's
always
right.
say to all my real estate investors, either you're going to pay with time or money. Which one do you want to do? Time or money, right? Shorten
true.
it, get a mentor, get a coach, shorten it, or go
Yeah.
on YouTube and watch it and spend your time, right?
Yes, exactly. Get a mentor, get a coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you know of anybody stuck, needs a coach.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, you're a good
Hey,
coach too,
I
Charmaine.
am.
I mean, I have coaches too, you know. I mean, I was just learning something this afternoon from
Yeah,
somebody.
I do too. I
Yeah,
do
who's
too.
better than me, you know, like
Yeah,
it never stops.
it never stops.
Never stops.
But thank goodness,
Yes.
that's what we're here for, to learn and grow.
We're so fortunate. Our generation of women are so fortunate.
Yeah.
Because my mother didn't have that opportunity. I don't know about your mother, you know, and
Oh, no.
the reason I didn't stay in Europe was because I knew as a woman, that's not where I could make it financially. I knew I had to come back to North America to make it. And I feel very fortunate that I was, you know, a baby boomer. And I came at a time when there was so much open to women at that time, something brand new, education and everything else, which my
Yeah.
mother never had a chance. Let's face it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I wish more people would take advantage of it. And I'm sure there are a lot of people, but hey, you know, women have to get stronger, really.
Yeah, we still have to get stronger. We're in
Yeah.
the process. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
problem is we've been in the process way too long.
It's
Um,
getting
Well,
closer.
the only thing you have is the rest of your life, Anne. It's up to you.
I know, but you know, I mean, when I stop and think of this is one of the things that BPW is very involved in is like equal pay for equal work.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
We've been doing that for over 60 years.
Yeah,
yes.
And we still don't have equal
Yeah,
pay.
I know.
And
I
I mean, you can say it for the rest of your life, but like sometimes the rest of your life shouldn't be spent fighting the same thing you started with.
Yes.
you know,
I
and
agree.
in
Yeah, I
in
agree
that
100%.
instance, in
Yeah,
that
in that
instance, equal
particular- yeah.
pay, women have to start asking for it,
Mhm.
Well, that too. Yeah.
you know, because businesses are finding out that they need both men and women to really make businesses go.
Well, the interesting
And-
thing is most businesses are better off when women are running,
Absolutely.
but they don't want to put, you know, nobody wants to admit that.
Mhm.
Yeah, they still have a problem admitting that after all these years, Anne, is that a shame, right?
Oh, it is.
And
yet
It's-
I must say what I have found, and I could be wrong about this, what I have found is that I think women have less rights now than they had when we were growing up and becoming mature women. I really do. I feel that women have less rights now than they had years ago. And I have felt
I
that
sort
about-
of half agree with you, but I think it's not so much that they have less rights, but we were a lot more devious about how we went about it before.
Oh, devious? Okay, all right, never thought
Well,
about
I shouldn't, maybe devious is the wrong word, but we usually had to go in the back door to get what we wanted. Whereas now we can ask and we can be involved. I mean, I
Okay.
look at my own daughters and they're very, all in business of sorts and,
Okay.
you know, doing things like running things. They're not just sitting around,
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
but
That's good.
oh, I think it's wonderful. I'm really
Sure.
proud of them. But I don't know. I know what you're saying. It seems like we have less because,
But I think it's what we're taking. It's what the women are taking,
yeah,
right? You know, some women, they're so busy raising family that they're happy to be in a 9 to 5 job.
Oh, for sure.
oh,
And
and
they
there's
don't
some to be,
that.
believe
They
me,
don't want,
Yeah,
they
there's
don't
nothing
want
wrong
more.
with that. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying
no,
no.
and there's something to very much something to be said to be in a business, your job that somebody else to worry about whether the company keeps going, not you.
Absolutely.
And there's an awful lot of
Yeah.
peace of mind there.
Yeah.
I have one daughter who has her own business, and she's like, she doesn't complain about it at all. She's pretty good at it, but she doesn't have the security of somebody else sending her a paycheck.
Yeah.
She has to be constantly looking for what's
Well, yeah,
next.
exactly.
My youngest daughter is in a very unique position, and I think she's on the board of the company she works for, but I'm never sure what she exactly is doing, but she's doing very well while she's doing it. She works in HR, I know that, but so she's again getting paid by a company, a large company that is doing keeping it going.
Of course.
But on the other hand, if she wasn't there or someone else in the same kind of role, the company wouldn't be going, that type of situation.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And my other one works at the bank. So
Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, interesting. I am so glad you agreed to be recorded. We can watch you time and time again
Oh
and
my
learn
goodness.
all
I
over
don't know how
again.
good that is. I don't know how good that is. But if anyone ever wants to reach out to me, that you got my book.
Yeah, I have it
Yeah.
too.
Just thought I'd show you. This is Maria's book she
Yeah.
wrote in 2015.
Yeah, 2015.
Fantastic.
I wanted to write a book and I did it.
Yes,
Awesome.
she did.
2015, published 2015.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very easy to read. Still
you.
very current.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to say thank you from all of us. And unless there are any more questions, I will stop the recording.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.